Hey everyone, hope you're all keeping safe. Obviously things are a bit difficult at the minute. It's beginning mid-April, and we're in the middle of lockdown, so it's really difficult to get hold of materials. And like a lot of people out there, I've just got a list of chores that I've got to get through, otherwise she's gonna really make my life difficult. So I thought I'd just share a few of them with you. This is one of a very long list. Making a little bookshelf to put the kids' stuff away. Biggest problem I've got is I can't get all the materials. So I've got this sheet of MDF that I've managed to find at the back of the shed. It's just standard 18mm MDF. Gonna make a little 1200 tall 4-foot bookshelf, which is gonna look something like this, and very simple, easy to make. Then when it's done, you can just paint it. MDF's not a bad thing to work with. The only thing I'd say is just make sure you've got a way of getting rid of the dust. There's a number of different ways we can cut this. We could use the Mafal, the track saw. So use any track saw, doesn't really matter. We could use the little circular, that'll do just as good a job for this. We could use the router. You could do it by hand, you could do it by jigsaw. There's loads of different ways. I'm going to use my track saw because I've got it. I've got the table saw with me as well. I've got them, I may as well use them. But if you haven't got them and you want to see different ways of cutting sheet material to consistent lengths, let me know. I can show you how to use the other techniques as well. Obviously we've all got different things in our sheds and I haven't got access to the workshop at the minute, so I'll just use what I've got. But this is just a nice simple little project. The first thing is sheet material. It's great, it's pretty uniform. Obviously I don't have a planer or anything like that here to be using solid timber, but all sheet material, I say all sheet material, I know there's caveats, but pretty much all sheet material, when you cut it into lengths, especially if it's been stood for a while, it'll bow. So give yourself plenty of margin. I've designed this purely so I can do all the cuts going across the width of the board. So these boards come in 1220 by 2440. I always ignore the perimeter of a board. You might think they're completely square and straight. They're not. They've been in warehouses, they've been on pallets, they've been knocked around, they've been in vans for delivery and trucks and all the rest of it. The edges, 9 times out of 10, will be knocked, dragged, and especially MDF. If you can see the fibres of the MDF, it goes quite fluffy on the edges. Well, my workbench, that's, you know, okay, it's moisture resistant MDF, but it's still the same thing. So you got all these knocks and imperfections. Right, what we're going to do, I've had a look at the sizes of books that this is for. These dimensions are just there to suit me. You do your cuts for whatever size you want. And the way that this is going to work, we're going to have a platform at the bottom that's going to have adjustable feet underneath with a bit of a pelmet going around, and that's purely there to support the weight of the MDF. What I've found is chipboard tends to hold a fixing better than MDF does. MDF can go quite soft at the joints over time. So we're going to make the sides of the bookshelf. The base is going to be the bottom of the bottom shelf, because then that gives us more material to make the sides. And then when we get to where each one of the shelves is, instead of driving a fixing through the side or using something like the lamello or a biscuit, like I say, I don't like them in MDF, and they don't take a lot of weight. We're just going to notch out, that'll probably only be 5 to 7 mil, but it just means that when this edge of the MDF goes into the side, it'll take glue. We can actually put a fixing in then as well. Without this splaying, you try and drive a nail into the end grain, for want of a better word, of MDF, and it'll start to push apart. If you pre-drill it, quite often it takes a lot of material out. I know people use things like drywall screws because they've got quite a coarse fitting, quite coarse thread, sorry. They do help, but you don't need to. If you notch it out like this and glue it, you don't actually need any mechanical fixings. And I've done quite a number of bookcases like this, so I know that's to be the case, and some of them are carrying quite a big weight. I've made trophy cabinets, bookcases, DVD cases, all sorts that have this kind of construction. And what I found over time is, once you've done this and put a back that's attached to it properly to hold it rigid, it goes nowhere. You can use pocket hole screws. This is a fine threaded screw. I've got the coarse ones as well, and they're great, but again, over time they just don't hold an MDF. You've got to have the glue, and if you try to pocket hole into the side without something to hold the MDF, it just will not stand the test of time, not in my opinion anyway. But you go the way you want to go. I'm going to show you how I make it. Hopefully it gives you some ideas. If you've got more material than I have, or if you can get hold of more material than me, obviously you can make this 20 dimensions you want to, and if nothing else, this will give the kids something to paint, so that keeps them out of my way as well. Right, we'll start getting measured out. I think we've got a very slight curve to deal with. Oh well, we'll get rid of that. But that's the shelves. Well, that's the start. These are cut, should be about 270. Final dimensions are after about 250. What are we? Close enough to 270. That's just a rough cut. When timber board like this is cut down, obviously trying to manage an 8x4 sheet, it ain't easy. So if you can cut your boards down, make them more manageable. Now it's easy to run them through the table, so I can use them properly on the bench and get some dogs on the bench and cut round them properly. It's just purely to make them more manageable, so that's why I've just rough cut them. And that's all we're going to need for the shelves. That then is left over for another project, whatever we decide to make with it. Making something like this, I'm after around about a 250mm final depth on the shelf, but it's not critical. Nobody's going to come round and measure it. It's just what I'm aiming for. But with a lot of these things, don't worry about it being millimetre perfect. Just get consistency. If all the components are built to the same depth, it'll work. And if it's a few mil out, nobody really cares. Unless this is a freestanding piece of furniture, there's nothing next to it, it hasn't got to tie in with anything, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm not going to beat myself up trying to get down to the mill. In order to get the consistency at the back, my rails I never trust these rubber strips on any track saw. Doesn't matter whether it's Mafal, Festool, Dual, whatever. I go off the back because the back gets very little abuse. I actually take better care of the back of the rail than I do the front, because these are sacrificial. Same as my bench, that's why it gets so wrecked. It's just a tool. Sacrificial, gets replaced. But the back, so long as you keep that as perfect as you can, and then for setting up for things like this, I just run the sliding bevel up there, marked off at 106. I know that my track's about 144 from the back to the front of the rubber, and I'll just set everyone up like that across the back of the shelf, cut them all the same. I've had these clamped up overnight just to try and straighten them out. I've obviously left the board in the van for way too long. And when I took the clamps off this morning, they were still cupped up. I tried to clamp them over another offcut, just to try and bow them the other way. It's made them a bit better, but they're still cupped. So these are the side pieces for the bookcase. And what I need to do now is basically cut these grooves into the side of the bookcase, and then the shelves of the bookcase can sit inside. And this is what I was talking about, especially with MDF. If you try and screw into the cross grain, it has a habit of splitting and spreading. Just putting that little rebate into them there. If you need to put a fixing in then from the outside of the bookcase, it just holds everything together. So we've got to cut them. A few different options. We need to put in three rebates going down the length of them. Not worried about the bottom because that's going to be sat on the base of the bookshelf. The top, well, it'll have a lid, so we haven't got to worry about that. So it's only the three. And the options I've got here are using the router. So long as you've got a straight edge running across the two, you can just route them through. Exactly the same process, but use the circular. Once you've set the depth of the blade, you can run them through. I find the circular to be a lot quicker, and it's just as simple as marking them square against it, and then you can just run the edge of the machine up against the side of the square. And it doesn't matter which way you go. And to get them accurate, all you're measuring from is the edge of the machine that's running up against your fence to the outer edge of the teeth, and dependent on the blade that you've got. The teeth on some blades alternate. I don't know if this will pick it up. So you'll get some teeth that kick out to the right and some teeth that kick out to the left. So this might show it a bit easier. So this is the outside frame of the saw, and the distance from that edge to the edge of the tooth that sticks out is 28mm. The blade itself is 1.65mm. I'm taking that as 2mm. It'll give me a bit of tolerance just for sliding the shelf in. What you don't want to do with MDF is try and squeeze it into somewhere that's just slightly too small for, because it'll fur it all out, or it'll blow, it just does some. It's very, very soft material. It just doesn't play nicely. But a nice snug fit would be ideal. If not, we've got glue and filler. For doing this cut, because of the way the machine runs, I'll measure 30mm from this line down, and the same a bit further along. So that'll be where my fence needs to sit for this line. I'll then go 28mm, because I'm now using the opposite side of the blade down for this one to channel out this side. The inside, I'm just taking away material. You could even do it freehand with a router if you feel comfortable enough with it. Do yourself a test cut on a scrap, especially for your depth. And if ever you use the circular or chop saw, you'll notice you get these ridges. Really need to get a better camera. There you go. Don't know if you can make it out. You get kind of like trough marks or cut lines. On MDF, a decent chisel, and just by hand just run it across, just take them down, and it just stops them from being as noticeable on the edge. Take all of your measurements from one edge. All of mine, I've gone from what will basically be the bottom of the shelf, and I've worked my way up. Okay, so I've measured up from what's going to be the base of the cabinet, base of the bookshelf, up to this inner edge. I've just used a piece of steel bar, something I got that I trusted was straight. Doesn't really matter what it is, but depending on which side you're cutting, I've got no restrictions on this side. If I was cutting on this side, I'd have to be careful of the gap under the motor, and I've just ran a test cut on a scrap just to make sure I've got the depth where I wanted it. I'm doing this at 5mm. The depth of this, it's not crucial. I wouldn't go, personally I wouldn't go any further than halfway. I'd want to be this side of halfway, but for me, sort of between 5 and 7mm I think's enough. But again, it's not crucial. The important thing is that it's consistent. Okay, so I've just kept going over and over with the circular, and this is what you get down to. So it's not perfectly channeled out, but it's pretty close. So now I can just go over it then with a chisel. Always worth putting a sacrificial piece as well at the back. It just stops when you get to the end of the workpiece. It stops the saw from dipping down. Otherwise, you'll end up with a deep cut at the end. So just a sacrificial piece at the end, just for the saw to run off. Once that's had a very light pass over now with a chisel, that should be fine. And then the only thing left to do is just test it with the piece to see if it, I haven't tested it, maybe I should have tested it before I picked it up. I need to measure this as well because it's been in here, so it could be full of damp. Is just check the size of your hole, because if you need to alter it, you can alter it now, but I would always keep to the line that you've measured from your datum, so the bottom part of the piece, and alter it going up, just to try and keep your levels the same on both workpieces. Okay, this shows you how much moisture MDF holds. I've checked the measurements on the rebate that I've cut. That is 18mm. And the piece that I was trying to push in there, I don't know if you can make that out, is 19mm, and that's just purely moisture from being in here. These boards aren't perfect when they come out the factory. They aren't all perfect, so just because it says 18mm on the sticker doesn't mean it's exactly 18mm. Right, so those rebates are cut now. So I ended up just running them through with the circular saw, and that's how the shelves will sit in. I haven't cleaned these out yet with a chisel, but they sit pretty nicely. They're pretty much all the same, so I'm quite happy with that, and hopefully that'll help with the curve. Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to see. So now I need to cut the shelves. Great thing about these benches, you don't need any notepads. Overall size of the cabinet, width-wise, this is that I want is 850mm. I've cut 5mm rebates into 18mm board, so that leaves with 13mm of material left. got the two sides, that's the 26, 2/13 26, which means I need to cut my shelves at 824mm long. Again, that measurement doesn't have to be millimetre perfect so long as it's consistent. The main thing is that all of them are the same. The baseboard, that I'll do differently because I want that to have a slight overhang to it, and I'll just route a finish to that because I'm going to put adjustable feet on this. You don't need to, you can just have it sitting flat on the floor, but our house is 1930s, so nothing's level, so I'm going to put adjustable feet on that. Going to get these marked up, nothing great to these. I'm just going to mark them to length, cut them on choppy over there, and then it's just time to put the thing together really. Right, once I'd cut the shelves, the length of the shelves is irrelevant, it's just whatever suits you. I've slid them into the grooves at the bottom. Now because this board's twisted, I had a hell of a fight. I mean, you can see where it started to split. That's just purely because the board was just twisted and warped. But being as I can't just go to the merchants and just pick up another one, I've just fought with it, and yeah, we can't afford to waste it. Can't get hold of any more at the minute, so I've literally just beat it into submission. And when the bookcase was the other way around, so when these were at the top, I've just drilled pilot holes and screwed them together just to hold everything together for now. All I'm going to do now is cut the top. I'm going to use biscuits again just because of the curve in the board, just to straighten everything up. Okay, so I've cut the bottom and the top. Now the bottom is slightly longer and slightly wider than the top. You don't have to do this, I've done it just because I want to just put a routed edge on, but it doesn't matter if you leave it square. I've found with MDF that if you just round the edges of it, it doesn't tend to burst as much. It can be quite soft, MDF can. So it's roughly sort of 10mm all the way around, and I'm just going to use a round over bit just to take the edge off at the bottom. That'll tend to be the bit that gets caught. Once the top's on, I'm going to leave it up to a judgment call of as to whether I put the round over onto the top or not, but I'll worry about that when it's all together. Okay, this is what I was saying about the MDF splitting. This is where I've just swapped the screws. My bad. I was trying to use a slightly bigger headed screw just to get a bit more grip, but we've had a bit of splittage. I mean, it'll get sorted with glue. I'll say it's getting filled, painted and all the rest of it. So when it's glued up, I'll just clamp that, it'll hold it together. Started to split down here as well, and that was because of the twist in the board. The rest of it's gone together quite well. Right, because the board's going to, well, the biscuit's going to be slightly more inset. So this is normally where it would put the biscuit, that mark just there. So that's normally where it would be if it was if I was using the edge of the board as a reference, but because we're just stepping in, it's 9mm, so that's what that second mark's for. So all I've done is just popped metal ruler on as a fence so that I can keep it equal. Done the same marks on this side, and that just means that I can get the same joint on that side as what I can get on this side. And because it's only a thin rule, it gives me room to plunge the cutter. Right, okay, so finally loose fitted it, I haven't fixed it or anything because I need to right the bevel, but before I was going to put the round into it I just wanted to make sure that my little addings ups were right, which they are. So I didn't quite cut that biscuit properly, so that gives you your sort of 10mm lip, same at the front. And then it's exactly the same underneath as well. I know you can't see properly because it's sat on the packers, but it gives it exactly the same. So it came out how I wanted it to. So I'm just going to run the round over now with the router. Bang some glue on it. It's only a dry fix together at the minute, so break it all apart then and start gluing it all up. Yeah, that round over just finishes it off, just softens it up a bit, and I think it just makes it a nicer finish. And that's pretty much all you'll see once it's on the bottom. So I'll glue it and screw it to the bottom of the shelves. Okay, this is the last few bits now. So the bookshelf's turned upside down. These adjustable feet, got these left over from a job. I think we had these from Amazon. They're quite cheap. This bit goes into an 8mm hole that you drill through the bottom, and it just pushes in. I use a G-clamp just to push them into the timber, and then the foot just screws in. They're quite a slim profile, they are. Unfortunately they don't have a nut. If we do use them, we tend to just spin a nut down to the bottom so that you've got a bit of adjustment for lifting furniture, but again for this it's just sort of, like I say, cheap project, whatever I've got lying about. But they are really cheap. The other ones I've got are this sort, and they've got the square nut adjuster at the bottom, but I use these so I can drill down through the top and use a screwdriver just to lift the piece of furniture up. They're great if you're putting a bit of a plinth across the front so that you don't see them, so like office furniture, computer desks, that kind of thing. And they're great for that because they're hidden, but for this it's just not the kind of thing we want for there. So what I've done with these is 50mm in from the sides and then 40mm up from the back and the front. They're not magic numbers, it's just what I felt was right, and then done exactly the same in the centre and then at the far end just to balance it out. The other half's going to be chucking a load of books on this, so it's just to stop them sagging really. And then I've got a piece of, I think it's either 3mm or 6mm ply that I'm just going to pin to the back, and that just stops it from racking, but with it being made out of 18mm it's pretty solid, to be fair. So that's the feet all in, and they just spin up and down, nice and simple. It's about the easiest way of putting adjustable feet into anything really. It's actually a 10mm drill bit, not an 8mm, my bad. So that's them done. Back next. get that one later.